Welcome to the Gen Z podcast by Civis, where we, the next gen citizens, get real about the invisible rules that shape our lives and the power we hold to change them. Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to the Gen Z podcast. We're very happy if you're here and we hope you take away some interesting things from this episode. Hi Antra, how are you? It's been a while.
Hi. I saw you like yesterday and the day before, but yes, a while since we spoke through microphones to this lovely audience that's joining us. I'm good, yeah. Today's a big day. It's BMC election day in Bombay. Polls are happening actually across the state in different municipalities. So, fun day to be recording this episode.
But how are we feeling about it? Are we feeling pressured to make a decision? Are we feeling empowered? What are the feels today?
Sukirat, when you ask me this question, I have all the feels, right? All the time. I literally cried when I got my voter ID card.
That's insane, and that's very valid.
Is it? I don't know. The postman uncle had called because I wasn't home to receive it. And he was like, it's come. You'll have to come and collect it from the post office. And I cried. I was like, oh my God, my voter ID card has come. So I'm all feels about this. But yeah, it's been a while since the municipal elections happened. And so much has changed in our cities and cityscapes in the meantime. So it's going to be an interesting day today.
Yeah, I get it. And I truly understand, that feeling of getting your voter ID card and finally having a say in the vibrant democracy, a constant word in our episodes. But yeah, don't you feel like you vote once in 5 years and then later you figure out, now what? Like, am I even part of this system? Decisions are being made. Is my opinion even important? Why am I not asked before making decisions that are impacting me and the people around me directly or indirectly?
Yeah, all the time, it's kind of like a decision just sort of drops. You just know like the end outcome without actually understanding the process and how you got there. And that's something that is very different from the way things work today, don't you?
Yeah, even though the decision-making process seems legal, it just feels unfair because you're not asking me how things are impacting me. So I think it's only fair that in today's episode, on this auspicious occasion of polling day in Mumbai, that we talk about other tiny processes that also make democracy what it is today. So, shall we say the very precious two words which are going to be repeated many times in today's episode? Are we keeping a count of the words?
We should keep a count of times that we say words with C and times that we say the fabled two words. So Kirat, what are these two words?
Is it public consultation?
You're so right. It is public consultation. It's something that's really close to both of our hearts and very, very excited to be able to have this chat with everybody listening in, but also with you, Sukirat. So I think there's so many steps, right? Like, let's maybe just start by decoding just for a minute what a public consultation is, and then we can go into a little bit of how it works and why it's so important. I think just for everybody who is listening in, I didn't know, to be honest, before I started doing this work, that laws that are made for us actually have the opportunity to be made by us. And that opportunity is known as a public consultation, where you and I can actually participate and engage in the lawmaking process and share our feedback on different laws and policies before they get passed. But laws are really complicated. And how are we supposed to make sense of them?
Thank you so much for just simply putting out what public consultations are. But before we actually jump right into public consultations, like, let's just, try and figure out why it feels important to be part of the decision making process, right? Like you mentioned, laws are so complicated, but also not only complicated, they're inaccessible to people, right? So let's begin by addressing what is the bridge that we are trying to build right here, right? So I don't think we as citizens are expecting the government to ask us about everything, but it shouldn't feel like the process of decision making is happening somewhere far away or behind the doors. It's just, it shouldn't be that at the final stage we are getting to know, okay, this is what is happening. It shouldn't feel like, oh, okay, so this was already decided. Because the problem with that is, for me at least, that once you feel like the decision was pre-decided, mentally you will check out from the system, right? Like, obviously, even when we do public consultations, even when we ask people what they feel about something, everybody will have a varied opinion about it, and not everybody's opinion will be taken into consideration, right? But in the end, we'll agree to disagree. But once you're not even asked your opinion, right? More than disagreement, it leads to disengagement. And that's not somewhere we want people to reach, right? Because once you're disengaging with the system, then the entire idea of a democracy fails. So
Yeah, I think that's so true, and you're so right. It's more the disengagement is the part that's the more dangerous and perhaps insidious part of this system. But I also feel like in a lot of cases, disengagement actually comes about because you don't have faith in the system as a whole, right? And it's important for governments and sort of systems to build that trust. So trust is also like a kind of abstract concept in some ways, right? But fundamentally, there are two kinds of trust. One kind of trust is where you say, ki, okay, fine, because I know this person, I trust that this job will get done, right? And the second kind of trust is where you say, ki, okay, fine, because this process was transparently laid out, because I was involved at every step of the process, I trust that it has been done well. And it's really interesting because that second kind of trust is what we're trying to build. It's not just that you have to have sort of some trust or faith ki theek hai, I know this person, so something will get done. That's actually really detrimental to the system. But as long as if you know that, okay, fine, this entire system has been working well, it's been doing it in a transparent manner, it's been reaching out, it's legitimate, all of those things actually build trust. And a lot of what I heard you say also was about feeling, and that is part of the entire process of policy making. It's part of the entire process of being a citizen. It's your feelings towards the state and towards different bodies and government processes as well. So it's really important that we feel like it's trustworthy. I think that's like the big cornerstone and the reason why building bridges is important also.
right, and especially here at Civis, we are so constantly talking about the feeling of empathy in the process of decision making, right? And empathy towards both the government system, because, yeah, there are loopholes, there are issues, but they are also trying their best, right? And also with the citizens in terms of seeing beyond the numbers, seeing beyond the statistics, and just the feeling that we're talking about. And I'm so glad you spoke about trust. That's the point, right? When people can't see the process, even a good outcome might seem suspicious, right? But when you involve them even a little bit, and even if the end outcome is not what they wanted, they won't be not trusting the process. Trust is what we are trying to build here. But let's dive into where India is getting its process of public consultation from. How are we dealing with getting people involved in the lawmaking process?
Actually, Sukirat, what you touched upon is something that I like to call our citizen superpowers. We as citizens basically have a bunch of different superpowers that we can wield at any given point of time. And one of those superpowers is PLCP. Others are voting, filing RTIs, a number of different other ways in which we can engage in the democratic process, including just walking in and sitting and having chai with a municipal officer. So, PLCP is a really big part of that citizen superpower toolkit. It's a mouthful. So, do you want to explain to us what it is and when did it come around? What's going on there?
I mean, I should start by saying that it's our Bible at Civis because if you've not already figured out, we work extensively with public consultations. So it's our Bible, it's our Gita, it's our Quran. So in India, the idea was actually built in 2015, right, with the pre-legislative consultation policy, which is the PLCP, which requires ministries, regulatory bodies to release drafts of policies or laws they want to introduce before they go to the parliament, and they need to release these drafts for a period of 30 days and ensure that they're doing some sort of outreach in order to get the citizens' attention about what they're trying to change, what they want to do. The policy should come with an explanatory note explaining what the impact of the policy is going to be.
And it's actually insane because this process of gathering public feedback, it works. So yeah, the system works. You and I are not surprised, but I can see how other people who aren't seeing these wins and successes day in and day out might be, right? So the idea is that the government asks for feedback on a draft law or policy before it gets passed. So recently, in fact, we had a set of guidelines to make the process of applying for a disabilities identity card harder because there was a lot of misuse of disability cards, right? So the Ministry of Social Justice said, we'll have to make this process a little harder. Now, they came at it with the best intention because you don't want to misuse an identity card or you don't want to create a system which is so easy to game. But at the same time, what happened is that in creating those guidelines, members of the community who had genuine disabilities wouldn't have been able to fill those very difficult forms. So it created a little bit of a concern around the fact that the citizens, the impacted people came in and said that, actually, if you make such strict guidelines, we can't actually participate. And we have genuine disabilities and we won't be able to get our disability identity card. So the government, to their credit, took in all of that feedback. They ruminated about it and they said, okay, fine, you know what, we'll come up with the law around this, but maybe at a later stage. So they just completely went back on something which was not a practical law, and the disability identity card process has been easier ever since. And we've seen this everywhere. We've seen it in the transgender rules, we've seen it in housing policies in the state of Maharashtra. We're not doing this on video yet, but Sukirat is making some house gestures to tell me that I forgot housing. but the idea is that we've seen this like across the board, and it's such an important process that in Taiwan, in fact, they had a very low trust score with their government at a particular time, and the ruling party that ultimately won the election, so people in Taiwan were really unhappy. A new government came into place, and that new government actually invited the protesters to form a part of the government. And one of the first things they did to fix Taiwan's public trust in democracy is implement public consultations. And that's insane. You can actually rise percentage points in public trust by following good consultation practices. Again, I have all feels and goosebumps as usual.
And you have transferred all the feels to me as well. But just to understand, where is this process coming in? And you need to help me out figure where I am in this cycle of lawmaking and process making, right? Because it's a long process, of course, because it's a democracy. We will ask everybody what they feel about it. But where am I as a citizen?
So that's a really good point. So, we were studying this and we realized that the entire process of lawmaking has 17 main steps, which each have sub steps. Oh my God.
Insane.
Right? It's crazy. Like 17 chunky steps and then chotu pieces of that. It's a long process, right? But essentially, where the citizens come in actually is in 3 or 4 of those big 17 steps, right? So one is when a law is drafted, before it's placed in parliament, you can have consultations through standing committees, through the ministry itself. Then after the law is drafted, even on the rules on how it's going to be implemented, because the laws sometimes are like broad sweeping vision statements, right? And Sukira deals with a lot of this in her role on a daily basis. The broad strokes come from the law, but the finer details comes from the rules. And even at the rules, you can actually engage and participate by giving your feedback. Finally, once a law has been implemented and maybe it's time to like relook it or change things up, even at that stage, the government asks for public input. So there are a lot of stages in the entire lawmaking process that we can intervene in. And essentially what happens after a public consultation is that all of the feedback, and we've seen this firsthand, right? Like we've seen government departments actually like print out each and every feedback piece, analyze it, map it to a particular clause and implement or consider it for implementation. So that's what happens immediately after you participate in a consultation.
Thank you. What I'm inferring out of our conversation is that on paper, actually, and with few of the examples that you've stated, right? People with disability consultation and transgender rights consultation, that we have a pretty solid PLCP and we have a pretty solid framework. But it'll be only fair if we also talk about our experience with engaging with it, because we do face issues when we engage with it, right? And only when we talk about it critically is when it's going to get better. So this is something, like you mentioned, I deal with directly, because a big part of my work is literally trying to find public consultations on every Monday. So the problem firstly is obviously about discovering the public consultations, right? So of course we have a PLCP, but it doesn't mandate the way the ministry or the regulatory body needs to release it, right? So they might release it on their website. There might be some official from the regulatory body or ministry who's part of drafting it, who'll release it on his own or her own. There might be a press release. So there is no single place for a citizen to go and instinctively go and find one place for public consultations. I mean, apart from our platform, civis.vote. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? So if participation is involving some sort of detective work, we're again losing out people. We're again disengaging them from the ecosystem, right? So my first issue is finding public consultations, and this is not a rant about my job. I love my job.
I was just going to say I have a new nickname for you. It's Sleuth Sukira. Like,
No!
Sleuth Sukira this
No.
time finding consultations. Okay, maybe we'll let that one go. And also, after you find them, to be honest, it's complicated, yeah? These documents are like 100, 300 page long, really complicated drafts that are referring to like one past clause and a future amendment and something else in another law. It's nested in such a huge web. How do you navigate that?
Right. And we are lawyers, right? Like, we studied law, and I at least still struggle with understanding what are they trying to say. So yeah, like we mentioned that the PLCP mandates an explanatory note, right? But that's obviously not the case with all the drafts that are released. So it's very hard to navigate what's changing and what's the impact, right? So you shouldn't feel like you need a law degree to understand what kind of feedback you need to give. That it's very hard to understand these drafts. How are the different stakeholders supposed to understand, right?
There's no easy answer here, yeah, because I also think that the infrastructure that the government has around doing consultations is so limited. Like, honestly, I just feel empathy there also, because ultimately it is hard, for example, to put out contextualized summaries. We do a lot of video explainers, audio explainers, and sometimes governments really surprise us. Going back to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, at one point of time, they had put out a consultation which actually had a sign language ISL translation for the entire document. So, the idea is that sometimes they are able to put in that effort, and if they have that bandwidth, they're really able to do a fantastic job. But it becomes somebody's additional responsibility, right? And any government office that we go to, we know how overburdened the system is and how overburdened people are there. So then to have the additional responsibility of now, okay, explain this law, put it out in a public facing way, it does get to be difficult. And I think because we're talking about our big dreams for this system, right? I think actually creating a law for public consultation that mandates that, okay, every government body or department is supposed to have a public consultation officer. This was one of the laws that Supriya Sule had suggested in her private member bill on public consultations. And it's come up a couple of times through different parties. Even Jagdambika Pal and others have sort of floated similar ideas in parliament. So maybe that would help the system. Maybe that would actually create some sort of dedicated resource for public consultation in a way that makes it accessible to the citizen but also sustainable for the government.
So that makes me feel like there is good intention, but we lack a standard mechanism. Do you think we're reaching that stage of building a muscle, a mechanism to ensure that public consultations become a mandate?
I really hope so because I think we're getting there. Like even recently, RBI, SEBI, PFRDA, IBBI, all of these like financial sector regulators who now I'm starting to realize all are very similar sounding acronyms. But aside from that, they've all kind of put into place regulations on the making of regulations. So it's rules about how to make rules. And one part of that is all of them have focused on public consultation and how important it is. So that is again something that we need to double down on and really look at very closely. And actually, like when we were doing research for this episode, right, we found so many examples from across the globe of this process working and working well. In Malta, I think they consulted citizens in planning parks and open spaces, right?
They particularly consulted children. That is so wholesome. Imagine, like, there were pictures, right, of a group of children just sitting in a park and being consulted for how they want their public spaces to be.
Oh my god, this is like recess therapy but policy edition. It's like I love it. But yeah, this Malta has this wonderful example. Taiwan now has like a platform called Be Taiwan, which is run by the Ministry of Digital Affairs. Shout out to one of my idols in this space, who's Audrey Tang, the former Minister of Digital Affairs in Taiwan. So they have this like really robust platform where people actually get to participate. They get SMSs. Can you imagine? Every time a consultation is put out, they get an SMS from the government.
And that means that they've built that bandwidth for themselves, right? So I'm sure it was a process. They also started from scratch. And that only gives me hope that, you know, we'll get there somewhere. And especially with the example of the children being consulted for public spaces, right? It's not only wholesome, but it's also telling of a trend, right? It shows that public participation is not reserved for crisis. It's making people part of everyday governance, right? And that's where trust is actually built. So ensuring that people are participating not just when things are going wrong, but when people are invited into small everyday decisions that affect their lives, right? Like we might feel like what's it with children being consulted for public spaces, but you don't really understand till you actually sit and think about how much of an impact public spaces have on children, right? On all of us, but especially children. Like, if you go back to your childhood, you'll be like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, I think it just needs to be a democratic habit. I'm saying very big words. We didn't do a public consultation count. I don't think we used it a lot of times.
I don't
Yeah,
think
we were
so.
good.
Also because we use like other words instead of it, like PLCC
Oh, yeah.
and consultation and all of that. But we're adding to the count right now and trying to figure out whether we did the count or not. But no, I think Sukirat, you're so right. It's the invitation to be a part of the process that really builds trust. And that invitation exists for us in India today. It is possible for us to participate. It is possible for us to build that muscle, even on the citizens' end, right? Like, it's not just the government, but even on the citizens' end. And I think what we're trying to do, not so subtly, is really just invite all of you into that process and share that it works, it's beautiful, and we'd love for you to be a part of it.
Yeah, and we could maybe put in our case studies from our work with public consultations in the show notes for people to actually go through actual real numbers that have shown that how governments have actually taken into consideration public feedback, right? And yeah, we just want to leave the listeners with this hope that if people are consulted for playgrounds, it's only easier to believe they'll be heard for bigger things as well. And yeah, we never know. Procedural trust may swing things around for us. Get it, Antara? Do you get it? Please tell me you got it.
Oh my god. To be honest, it took me the third get it to get it. But I'm just slow this morning.
No, I've learned all my puns from you. Apart from being amazing at working in this space of public consultations, she's amazing at puns as well.
What she's trying to say is that I have some really bad dad
I
jokes.
never said that. Please.
See you folks, see you in the next
Yes.
episode, and leave us your comments, thoughts, feels below, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Yes, and we also want feedback on our episodes, how we can do better, and what you'll want us to incorporate in our conversations. Any suggestions for topics going forward, we'd love to hear that. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Special thanks to our production partner Nakul Agarwal and Loyalty Studios. Their expertise transforms our conversations into a seamless listening experience.